All right, this evening, Chinatown will host the candidates for Oakland Mayor and for District 2 Council seat. And this is our chance to learn about their positions on issues facing Chinatown and our District 2. All right, are the translators ready? Okay, so let me tell you that this event is being brought to you by the Oakland Chinatown Coalition and the Oakland League of Women Voters, with particular support from APEN, APILO, Asian Health Services, CACA East Bay Asian Youth Center, EBALDC, Oakland Asian Cultural Center, Organization of Chinese Americans, and Protect Oakland Chinatown. Our co-sponsors are Compassion in Oakland and East Bay Housing Organization and Oakland Rising. Okay, so my name is Evelyn Lee and I'm your host for this forum. I've lived in District 2 since 1980. I'm the secretary of the board of the Oakland Asian Cultural Center. As you may know, Oakland Asian Cultural Center presents Asian and Pacific Islander art, literature, and performance to promote cross-cultural, intergenerational understanding and social justice. Okay, so your presence here this evening shows how Oakland Chinatown wants strong leaders who support the right of neighborhoods like Chinatown to thrive as a growing residential, business, and cultural resource for our communities.
Can you speak a little bit slowly because we have a translator. We cannot do faster. If you
Okay,
speak faster,
all right.
we cannot do
Okay, all right. I've been asked to speak more slowly so that the translation can happen. Okay, so basically I'm welcoming everyone here and thanking you so much for your support for the electoral process, which is going to bring us great leadership for Oakland. Okay, how do we get these leaders? We vote them into office, and you must be registered in order to vote. So the League of Women Voters, whose table is over there, the blue one and the red one, they will help you to register to vote and explain how to vote. But you must be a U.S. citizen. Green card holders cannot vote. But APILO, let's see, Asian Pacific Islander Legal Outreach, Nancy Wong over there, Nancy Wong will help you if you are a green card holder to apply for naturalized citizenship. If you or a friend are interested, please visit Nancy or the League of Women Voters table over there. Okay. So, assuming everyone can follow this, our program this evening will consist of two segments. The two candidates for the office of council member for District 2, who are sitting here, will be presented first. At 5:45, there will be a 15-minute break, during which boxed food will be distributed. At 6 o'clock, the 10 candidates for the office of mayor will be presented. Because of limited time, we ask you to hold your applause until the very end of the program. All right, and now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Eunice Kwan. Eunice will be moderating the segment for District 2 council member. She's the director of Asian Pacific American Student Development at UC Berkeley. She currently serves on the board of the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, the Sustainable Economies Law Center, and Asian Women United, a nonprofit that publicizes the diverse experiences of Asian American women. Now, before we get into the question and answer period, I would like to provide a little orientation about the duties and responsibilities of your city council member. The city council sets goals and priorities for the city. The council approves the city budget and enacts the laws. The 8-member city council is made up of one representative from each of the 7 districts with one at-large representative. The council member will serve for 4 years. And now we're talking about District 2, which encompasses Chinatown and the East Lake, San Antonio, and Grand Lake neighborhoods. One more thing that I have to share with you are the ground rules for this forum. So this event is being translated simultaneously into Chinese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Korean. The translators must watch and listen to the proceedings and instantly repeat what they hear. So we ask the candidates to please speak slowly and clearly. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves. They will be asked 7 questions about issues that are important to Chinatown. Candidates are expected to address the audience in response to the questions and not debate among each other. The candidates will take turns going first, and timekeepers will make sure that each candidate has the same amount of time to answer. So our timekeepers are in the front row here, and they will make sure that nobody exceeds their time limit. Our moderator will say when time's up and may silence the mic to enforce the time limits. Okay, appropriate measures such as suspension of microphone privileges will be taken to prevent any speech or behavior that is disrespectful to the community. All right, this is a neutral forum for the discussion of ideas. That means that candidates and their supporters may not pass out or display any campaign materials. Okay. Because of limited time, please hold your applause until the end of the presentation. Okay, now I turn the microphone over to Eunice.
Thank you, Evelyn. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to get started with introductions for the candidates for City Council District 2. We have Harold Lowe, who is a financial planner and consultant, and candidate Nikki Fortunato Bass, who is the current District Council member for District 2. So we're going to get started, and you each have 1 minute for introductions and opening statements, and we'll take turns on who goes first. So we're going to start with candidate Lowe.
Thank you. Thank you all for hosting us here today. I live about a 15-minute walk from here. I'm a native of Oakland. My parents grew up here. My grandparents grew up here. We've been here for about 100 years. And yes, my last name is Lowe. I come by it honestly. If you look at the U.S. Census, about 100 years before I was born, it was LOW. And then there's also when you see Lowe, it means something to me. It means the diversity of Oakland. It means that I'm this community. And it means that for me and my children, we want to make sure that we embrace and we protect this community. Because as a fourth-generation Oaklander, I think that we're just going off the wrong track, and I'd like to see some changes.
Daigaho? Hello, my name is Nikki Fortunato Bass. I'm a 25-year resident of Oakland's District 2, and I got my start as a community organizer right here in Chinatown. I'm proud to represent you as your District 2 council member. I'm also proud to be the first Filipina-American elected official. I know that many of you are here because you love Oakland, you love Chinatown. I also know that many of us are fearful of the violence in our city. We're angry at the trash. We're sad about the rising homelessness. And I want to let you know that for me, as an Oaklander, a mother, a survivor of violence, I am angry and frustrated at all of those things too. And over the last 4 years, we've been able to do a lot together. We have been able to establish an eviction moratorium to keep tenants in their homes. We've been able to fight anti-Asian hate with increased police patrols and community ambassadors. We've been able to invest in our businesses and our parks. And I look forward to having this conversation with you today.
Thank you, candidate Lowe and candidate Bass. We're going to have the first 2 questions around the protection from displacement and cultural preservation as a topic. So the first question, you'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer, is As a candidate for council, what actions are effective and how will you prioritize improving housing affordability in a neighborhood like Chinatown and reducing displacement pressure on existing residents? And we're going to start with candidate Bass.
So we have to have a multi-pronged strategy around housing affordability and displacement. That has been a priority of mine, not only during my term in office, but for most of my lifetime as an activist and organizer. In terms of preventing displacement, I'm proud that the eviction moratorium is still keeping people in their homes. In terms of protecting tenant rights, I'm proud to be a champion of a host of issues around protecting tenants' rights, including the ballot measure that is before you this November. We also have to make sure we are creating affordable housing, and I have done that by creating a multi-million-dollar fund that helps tenants to purchase their homes with land trusts and become homeowners. I placed onto the ballot an affordable housing bond that will raise $350 million to preserve and create affordable housing. These are the types of things I'm really proud of, in addition to preventing homelessness and helping our unsheltered neighbors get off our streets.
Kenneth Lowe, you have 1:30 seconds.
Thank you. I may just need to stand up and have a conversation. Can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is okay.
Yeah.
That's better.
Thank you. We are down 58% for housing starts in San Francisco and Oakland. The reality is that we have 500,000 units that should be built in the Bay Area. Oakland shares probably about 60,000 units. We need to have more housing to make sure that we protect people who are here. We understand the dot-com people coming in and displacing people. 1 unit, 2 units, 10 units isn't enough. We have to have a comprehensive plan to be able to do that. We currently don't have that plan. When we've had larger starts, for example, East 12th, that was nixed in favor of low-income housing or housing for the unhoused. And we want to make sure that people who are here can stay here. I am a former executive director for the National Association of Minority Contractors in Northern California. I had 2 meetings today to talk about growth and development in this area by having minority business owners build and construct housing area and to build and construct other buildings that will give people a quality of life to be able to afford to stay here. We can build as much as we want, but if our people can't afford to stay here, they're going to be run out by other folks.
Okay, great. We'll get restarted here with the second question, still around the topic of displacement and cultural preservation. So the second question is, would you support policy and zoning protections to protect cultural districts like Chinatown? And what other ideas do you have? And we'll start with candidate Bass, right?
Yes, I absolutely would. Chinatown is such a unique community. I often say Chinatown is one of the few living Chinatowns. This is not a relic or a tourist attraction. This is a Chinatown where we have residents who have multiple generations of history here, so it's important to preserve. I'm proud that in 2019, I set aside funding in our budget to create a Chinatown Community Benefits District. That is getting off the ground, and part of its mandate will be marketing and other measures to help preserve Chinatown, not only as a business district, but as a community. And there's many more things that we can potentially do, including investing in our anchor organizations here in Chinatown, the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, the Oakland Library. I'm proud to have worked together with the Friends of Lincoln Park to bring in $12 million to support the expansion of this rec center. That's $4 million from the city, $8 million from the state. We're working on a $2 million earmark with Senator Padilla to make sure this can also be a resilience hub. And then a few blocks down at Madison Park, we renamed that together as a community to Wilma Chan Park. If you walk over, you'll see the brand new signs, you'll see a new public restroom, and then we will be celebrating in a very short time the reopening of that park in honor of Wilma Chan. Thank you.
Candidate Lowe?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question was, would you support policy and zoning protections to protect cultural districts like Chinatown, and what other ideas do you have?
Well, is this better? First, there were 500 Chinatowns in California. So we're down to maybe a dozen or so that are functional right now. This isn't a matter of political will. This is a matter of making sure that we do the right thing. So first, we have to protect our community. I think that what has to happen is that we certainly have to improve the business community so that that business community can thrive and grow and expand in the other areas. We have to be more sensitive to our aging population. You know, it's really difficult to walk around in Chinatown with the cars that are speeding going through Alameda, the cars that are using this thoroughfare to get to East Oakland. We have to have protected spaces where there aren't vehicles. We have to have protected spaces where we improve the parks. When I was a child, we used to go to the park near Webster. That park is not functional any longer. I know that there are resources coming into the community, but we're not protecting the infrastructure. We've got to spend a lot more money to be able to protect the parks and the land and making sure that the businesses around this area don't succumb to being displaced and that they will be able to thrive.
Thank you. The next question is on the topic of community safety. So as a council person, you will work collaboratively with your peers to have final decisions over funding revenue, budget accountability, and city policies. So what programs will you invest in to ensure adequate funding goes to violence prevention and more effective police responsiveness? And the first person is a candidate Lowe this time.
When we talk about investing in certain services or certain organizations, there was a report that came out from the city auditor's office that we haven't done a very good job of monitoring these organizations that have given us that we've given money to. I'm really worried that we are giving money to organizations because of political relationships and they're not effective. When we look at violence prevention in Oakland, we haven't made a dent over the last several years. In fact, due to the pandemic, violence has gone up against women and against the aged because people have been locked in and they've been able to abuse people and not be held accountable for that. I want to be able to look at the organizations that we are using and to be able to assess. If you asked me a week ago, I would have given you some organizations, but I'm really worried from this report that we received that there were $69 million spent in 3 years and we don't have an accurate measure for where that money was sent. So I'm very much interested in making sure that we don't give money to organizations that are from out of the community, out of town, and they're not using those resources for you, for the folks that need them.
Candidate Bass.
My approach to public safety is about partnership. Partnership with you all as the Chinatown community as well as the Little Saigon community. Partnership with our law enforcement partners like the police department. Partnership with organizations like Family Bridges and others who do community ambassador work. And I'm proud that over my tenure I have expanded our public safety system. We have invested over $17 million in violence prevention programs that is funding programs right here in Chinatown. We have created a crisis response program in our fire department that is taking on nonviolent, non-criminal 911 calls. That will allow police officers to focus their time on serious and violent crime because right now, police spend 60% of their time responding to 911 calls that are nonviolent, non-criminal, that do not require a police officer. And we need to make sure that police can focus on improving their 911 response, improving solving homicides and serious and violent crime. And lastly, I have been really focused on making sure that we can fill the vacant positions at the police department. Officer positions, as well as investigator positions and ceasefire positions. We are giving OPD the tools they need to partner with you, and that includes our partnership patrolling here in Chinatown as well as in Little Saigon. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is also on the topic of community safety. Yes, we're going to take a short pause. So we'll move on to our second question about community safety, and candidate Bass will respond to this one first. The second question is, how will you work with wide-ranging community stakeholder needs around public safety to ensure responsiveness after a crime has happened? For example, survivor support and follow-up, investigative resources that focus on the targeted task of bringing individuals who have committed violent crimes off the street, restorative justice, or re-engagement with the community.
Thank you for that question. One of the things that I think is really important is stopping violence before it happens. That means having violence interrupters in our communities, community outreach workers, gender-based specialists. And we've also been able in the city of Oakland to expand restorative justice, including with young people. That's not only through our Department of Violence Prevention investments, but also through the Oakland Fund for Children and Youth, which I reauthorized 2 years ago. I want to give you an example. Part of my district also includes the San Antonio neighborhood, as well as here in Chinatown. And many people have reached out to me after violence has happened for help. I want to quickly shout out the Asian Health Services because they are providing trauma-informed victim support together with Youth Alive and a host of other organizations. And in San Antonio, when someone reached out to me after there was a shooting and there was a family member in the hospital, they didn't know what to do. And because we have more resources here in Oakland, I was able to connect them with one of our service providers who was able to find a Vietnamese speaking translator to work with the victim's mom and help her understand what was happening at the hospital, to work with the young woman who was his girlfriend who witnessed the trauma. And so they have been able to navigate with case management, victim support. They've been able to access resources and also deal with the trauma through mental health services. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Candidate Lowe, it's your time.
Can you repeat it again?
Sure. How will you work with wide-ranging community stakeholder needs around public safety to ensure responsiveness after a crime has happened? Some examples are survivor support and follow-up, investigative resources that focus on the targeted task of bringing individuals who have committed violent crimes off the street, restorative justice, and engagement with the community.
I believe that the first aspect of working with people after a crime has been committed is to do our best to make sure that crimes don't happen in the first place. The reason why I joined this race, I know San Antonio. I had a brother who was killed at 8 years old in the neighborhood near the park. I understand the challenges that people have with violence in this community. 6 months ago, I was attacked crossing the street over here in my car. I understand that this community has been preyed upon and we don't have the services to meet your mental health and your emotional health and your physical health. I was here with the Rotary Club about 4 or 5 months ago where we were passing out alarms to many of you to make sure that you were protected in the community. When we talk about stakeholders, the thing that I find very interesting is that we've never talked about those religious communities, those cultural institutions that we need to support. We have to make sure that they're part of the healing. You know, growing up here and having different multicultural experiences in my background, I want to make sure that we have healing, and the organizations that we've discussed really aren't speaking to that. The $17 million that was removed from the police force was placed into some of these organizations. I think that there's a stark contrast in how we see protecting people. I think the money should go back to the police force. I think that you need to be protected by using neighborhood crime prevention councils. Sorry.
Thank you. So the next question is around pedestrian safety and public health. So Chinatown has long identified its core transportation, pedestrian safety, and public health concerns as being negatively impacted by the large amount of traffic that comes through the neighborhood. Historically, that's been the traffic to and from Alameda. As a council member, what resources will you make available to ensure that the large infrastructure projects like Oakland Alameda Access Project and the Howard Terminal Ballpark do not contribute to even more auto traffic, pedestrian conflicts, lack of Chinatown destination parking, and the hazardous air quality in the neighborhood? And we'll start with candidate Lowe.
That's okay, you can say that. I think that the first thing we need to do is to have protected zones for pedestrians. I propose us having a system-wide pedestrian zone called the Spider. We can go to other communities and there are zones where people can walk and engage with parks, engage with transit. I think that we need to have that focused here, and we can give people access. We also need to provide for slower streets. If you look at larger cities, look at Washington, D.C. like ours. The traffic is about 50% as fast as ours because the streets move slower and there's more density. I think we could certainly have the opportunity to be able to create speed bumps, but we need to have zones where cars simply don't go. It would protect the environment, it would protect the community, it would protect him. So there are places that he can walk freely and not be obstructed by cars. There are a variety of, that's okay. There are a variety of different areas where we need to make sure that we are moving traffic around the community. If we're going to make a commitment to bring the A's downtown and a commitment to grow our downtown, we need to make sure that that does not happen at the expense of Chinatown. It happens around it.
Candidate Bass?
The Chinatown community has been so impacted by pedestrian safety. People have been killed on our streets, injured on our streets, and in 2018, when Oakland did an equity indicators study, Chinatown got a 1 out of 100 in terms of pedestrian safety. We are working with the community to change that, and the vehicles that you see around you, that you hear around you, that's contributing to carbon inside your homes. As we have been testing carbon levels inside people's homes in Chinatown, it matches the levels at West Oakland, near the Port of Oakland. Now, one of the things that's really important to me as someone who was an organizer before I got recruited to run for this office is listening. And I have listened to the Oakland Chinatown community. We have worked together around where the A's ballpark will be. I supported the community against not having it at Laney College, and I have been supporting the community around Howard Terminal specifically to listen to your goals and demands, to ensure there was a traffic study. That study has been completed. I know the coalition will be meeting with staff and the consultants around that study, and it's incredibly important to me to hear what your feedback is, to hear what you want incorporated into the traffic management plan, because I will not approve a project that harms this or other communities here in Oakland, that harms our environment, our port, or our taxpayers.
Thank you. The next question is on increasing general public open space. So parks and recreation centers are among the most important types of social infrastructure that helps us build relationships with our neighbors. The city of Oakland spends less than 2% of its budget on the Parks and Recreation Department. As council member, how will you prioritize, invest, and increase resources to the various parks, open space needs, and other community-serving resources throughout the district? And we're going to start with candidate Bass.
So when I think about a safe, thriving, vibrant community, it includes our parks, not just the open space, but the activity, the programming, like you see here at Lincoln Rec Center. This is the most utilized park in all of Oakland, multiple generations, all hours of the day. And over my term, relative to other council members who have preceded me, I'm proud that we have invested deeply in District 2 in our parks. Like I said earlier, $12 million to renovate the rec center because more and more people are coming to use this rec center, and $2 million pending to build a resilience hub. We invested in Wilma Chan Park and we'll be investing more deeply. We're investing in Clinton Park in Little Saigon. We're doing a big investment in San Antonio Park. And when the community was frustrated with how the city administration was leading that master planning process, I stepped in and worked with the Friends of San Antonio Park to do deep community engagement. And I'm championing their goals and priorities for San Antonio Park, to activate it, to expand it with a rec center, a library, and programming. I'm so proud that we now have finally a rec center director at that park, our largest in all of Oakland. Thank you.
Candidate Lowe?
I spend a lot of time with Parks and Recreation, in part because I'm a scout leader, and so many of our scouts use the parks If you go to the Rotary Nature Center, the new planter boxes that were built, your youth built those planter boxes. They raised the money, they developed those, and they had volunteers help build them. You know, parks and recreation only works when they're safe. We haven't heard a lot of information about why these parks are not safe. We can go to FM Smith, we can see out here right now, we can go to the park down the street, we can go to Franklin, and we can see that the parks are not safe. We can see that people are living in the parks. We can see that during the pandemic, when you needed to have a place to be, when your kids had nowhere else to go, they couldn't go to the parks because there was too much going on. We understand that the parks don't have bathrooms at work many times. We have fires. We had 800 fires in 2020 documented from people in our public spaces. We don't have the ability to be able to make these parks functional until we invest in them. I was a part of a committee in 2016 talking about raising the 2% threshold to 5%. We've had 4 years to talk about that. It didn't go anywhere. That has to happen, and that will happen under my administration.
So we have our final question before we go to the closing statements, and it's on improving youth programs. So our final question is, how will you center the voices, needs, and ideas of youth in transforming Oakland city government to be more responsive to our youngest residents? If you have listened to Chinatown youth during your campaign, what are their top priorities right now? And we'll start with candidate Lowe.
This is a question that's near and dear to my heart. I am on 3 organizational boards right now serving youth in Oakland. I saw Mr. Henry Chang pass by here. He was on city council when I became the first chair for the Oakland Youth Advisory Commission many years ago. When we talk about youth specifically in Chinatown, one of the challenges is that the resources to be able to support them have to be enhanced. I had a conversation about an hour before I arrived here from a scout troop. It's the only Asian scout troop in Oakland. It's been around for many years. Amy Ng's grandfather was a part of it. And that scout troop no longer meets in Oakland because they don't have a facility to be able to meet. We're missing the opportunity to be able to support our youth here in this community. So we're going to provide resources for them so all those scouts will be able to play and work and study and provide leadership here at reduced cost. It was too expensive. They're actually meeting out of city. I can speak to a dozen organizational issues we have where we're not supporting youth here in Oakland. The parks and recs were closed for 2 years under the pandemic. We've not recovered from that. We don't have resources to make sure that the religious organizations can support the youth here in the area as well. Again, I'm the board chair for Oakland Lacrosse. I run Scouts in Oakland. I run a camp for Oakland Rotary where we bring our kids to Monterey to learn about what it is to be in outdoors and leadership, and I'm going to bring that to the city.
Candidate Bass.
So I've spent a lot of time in Chinatown for decades as an organizer, and more time here because there's incredible programming. I've been supporting that programming, supporting our Parks and Recs workers, defending our parks budget, and focusing on building up this rec center because we need more space, we need more program. I have been fundraising for it together with the volunteers who've been dedicated to that literally for decades. I also work closely with the Oakland Youth Advisory Commission. We work together to reimagine public safety, and I listened to what they had to say in terms of keeping our streets safe. I also, through our budget, put in a line item so that they could have stipends to participate and guide the work at the City of Oakland. With this budget cycle, I put in a line item to support a strategic plan so that the Oakland Youth Commission could help guide everything that Oakland does from the perspective of young people. And like I said earlier, 2 years ago, I worked to reauthorize the Oakland Fund for Children and Youth. That is a $19 million fund that provides incredible programming, after-school programming, Head Start programming, a range of programming that is supporting our kids and our families. And again, the way that we can support our youth is also by using the structures of Oakland, like the Oakland Youth Commission, to make sure that we're being responsive systemically in listening to their concerns and putting money and policies behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to wrap up this part of the forum with your closing statements. You'll each have 1 minute, and we're going to start with candidate Bass.
So again, I'm really proud to be your council member. I'm proud to be an Asian Pacific Islander council member representing District 2 as well as the city of Oakland and serving as a leader as your council president. The past few years have no doubt been very, very challenging, but again, because we have worked in partnership, because we've built coalitions, we have accomplished a lot. There is much more investment here in Chinatown when you talk about parks. We also opened a public restroom at Wilma Chan Park, as well as at Lake Merritt. When you talk about homelessness, we opened the Oak Street community cabins, as well as the tiny homes at Lake Merritt, and that has allowed us to make sure we are housing with dignity and providing services to our unsheltered residents, creating safer communities, creating a path for housing for everybody. There is a lot more that we can do, and I believe that working together with one more term, we can take these building blocks, these initiatives, these programs that we have just started and scale them up.
Thank you, candidate Bass.
Thank you.
Candidate Lowe?
Thank you so much for being here. I have a minute. I'm not a blue blood. I grew up on welfare here in Oakland, and my parents were teenage parents. In this community, if you said to me, what's the number one issue? And then what's the number two issue? The number three issue, we didn't talk about those today. The number one issue for you is to make sure that you're safe. I'm in this race because you're not safe. I'm in this race because 4 years ago, we made a decision to go on a different path for how we were going to police in the community, and it hasn't worked. Last year, there was a report from a council member and from another member of city council that said that they wanted to reduce the police force by 50%. I've been in Oakland all my life. I'm 54 years old. I know I don't look it, but I'm 54 years old. I know that this community deserves better. Now, we can talk about my background. We can talk about being a financial planner. We can talk about me understanding 8 different industries. But after I leave here today...
Candidate Lowe, your time is
good God.
overdue.
Sorry.
Just right when you're ramping up there. I just want to thank you both, Candidate Bass and Candidate Lowe, for sharing your strategies on acting on the important issues facing Chinatown and the city of Oakland, and we wish you both the best on your campaigns. Thank you.
Thank you all.